This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new remake of the cult movie Roadhouse, this time starring Jake Gyllenhaal. The thriller Knox Goes Away, directed by and starring Michael Keaton. The murder mystery Sleeping Dogs with Russell Crowe, and Immaculate starring Sydney Sweeney. Plus we've got Woody Allen's latest film, Coup de Chance. We've got all that and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen. Welcome to Talking Pictures. It's our monthly Critic Roundtable show, where we debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. Joining me are Edward Douglas from GoldDerby.com, Perry Nemiroff from Collider, and Roger Friedman from Showbiz 411. Now let's start out with a look at several new films in theaters and or streaming, beginning with a remake of the movie Roadhouse. Let's take a look at a clip.
Del, you don't have to do this, man. You don't have to lose. You're going to lose in front of all your friends.
In front of? Oh, they're not here to just watch.
Oh, cool. Well, that's hardly fair.
Why, it's not fair.
Oh, I just slapped you. Are you all right?
What?
Damn! Him up. Come on, Derek. Come on, Derek. Let's call this a draw.
What the f***'s a draw?
It's kind of like a win, man.
Like I win?
It's a tie, Dale.
Yeah, like we win together, you know?
Oh, f*** you. Man. I'm gonna kill you!
Roger,
Yes.
tell us about Roadhouse.
So Roadhouse is a remake of the 1988 movie with Patrick Swayze. It was a cult movie about a bouncer who worked in a rough club out in the Midwest, and he was in a dusty roadhouse. Now it's set in the Florida Keys, and it's mostly on the water, so it should be called Boathouse. But Doug Liman, who's one of our great action directors, Edge of Tomorrow and so many other great movies, is the director, and he's made a film for theaters. They're going to show it. It's a long story. It's on Amazon Prime, but if you have a big TV, you'll really enjoy it because it's very exciting. It's a real popcorn movie. Jake Gyllenhaal plays the Patrick Swayze part. He's a little less rough around the edges than Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze didn't look like he had been in a gym 24 hours a day. Also, his hair would get messed up. And he was a little more ballet-like. But Jake Gyllenhaal is very charming and very engaging, and the movie is really meant for audiences. It's meant for a good time. And when we saw it in the theater, everyone loved it.
Perry?
I do think you're probably right, where it would benefit from being seen on the big screen in a packed house, but I watched it at home on a little screen like this, and you know what? I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I found the movie to be impossibly entertaining, even though, I found some of the characters a little bit on the thin side, and I took some issue with how the action was shot. Usually I really do like less editing and long takes. I think sometimes that serves the movie really, really well, and then sometimes it makes it a little jarring and your eye isn't seeing what it wants to see in a moment, but I feel like the entertainment value is there, and it's so strong that I can't help but to recommend this one.
And I love the biker gangs. And in particular, there's an actor in there named Arturo Castro, who was like the comic relief in the gang.
I'm glad you brought him up. I was thinking the same thing.
I spoke to him at the premiere, and he's from Guatemala, and he came up here on his own without any connections or anything, and he's been in a ton of movies, but this is the one he'll be remembered for.
Ed?
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I really liked it. I also thought it would play really well in theaters. I think people will go out to see it. I was not a huge fan of the Patrick Swayze movie. I was never like one of these people who just loved it and loved it.
Yeah, this was no masterpiece, you know?
No, but everyone was so upset when it was getting remade, and they've been trying to make it for a year. I think Jake's great. I'm not a UFC fan either, but they have Conor McGregor, who's like a huge UFC guy, doing his first acting role, and I actually stayed to the end of the movie because I was so impressed by him. And then the other one is Arturo Castro, who's like a comic actor. He was on Broad Street, and he was really funny, and they had him cast as like this goon, but he actually added some laughs. So I generally think it's a really entertaining, well-made remake that I would recommend to see on Prime if that's the way to see it.
The original was play on TV like 30 times a week on TNT. It was like the thing was always on. But yeah, if you're going to remake this movie, look, it's no Shakespearean kind of movie here. I mean, if you like lots of fights and action, and a lot of the action, as Roger mentioned, takes place on the water. There's some high-speed boat chases on the water. You know, if this is what you're looking for, like a Fast and Furious, just tons of like action stuff, then you'll enjoy the movie. I like Jake Gyllenhaal. He was smug. He was funny. And I agree with you also. I mean, this is the kind of movie that should have been, if it was released in the theater, it would have made a ton of money. I don't understand why they're not giving it some sort of theatrical release. But as Perry said, okay, you watched it on a little thing and it worked. So anyway, if you like this kind of thing, I'd say go for it. Ed, tell me about a movie called Sleeping Dogs.
Russell Crowe stars in Sleeping Dogs. He plays a retired police detective who has some form of memory loss, which we're not really sure if it's because of a car accident or Alzheimer's. It's very unclear. But this is basically a modern noir movie that has Karen Gillan playing a femme fatale. It involves him investigating a crime that he basically caught someone and put someone on death row for. And it's very, I mean, it's one of these movies that with memory loss and detectives is like, well, with this Memento, why do we need another one of these things? And why do we keep using Alzheimer's and dementia as a plot device? It's really kind of bothersome. And I thought it was just not good. I think Karen Gillan wasn't very good. She was kind of stiff, and it was just not the best movie.
Perry?
I thought it started off fairly well, where I was intrigued by the scenario, and I did catch myself leaning in and trying to investigate and figuring everything out. But then I want to say it's around the midpoint where things just got convoluted, and I started to, I don't know for sure. I haven't rewatched the movie, but I started to pick up on things that I thought were likely plot holes. And, when plot holes start to pop up, it makes the ending and the reveal in the end less satisfying. And if you don't have satisfaction in the end with a mystery like this, then what's the point?
I'm impressed that you got to the end.
Ed, no. If I'm ever reviewing a movie, you get to the end.
Okay. Russell Crowe is a very perplexing career. I cannot figure it out. In watching this movie, how he came to pick this material is beyond me. He really should have been doing big movies in Hollywood. Why he's continued to do these strange movies, they're not even independent movies. They're just independent of the film business.
Look,
and they're not good.
It's not particularly well shot, and it's ultimately not well thought out. I was with this movie for most of the way through. I was not bored. I was like, okay, but the ending is so bad, it makes no sense that it negates everything that came before it. I'm not going to reveal the ending. I'm not going to reveal a spoiler, although I don't recommend anybody seeing this particular movie. But there is a thing in this movie where, like, with memory loss, and he starts getting his memory back, and none of these other characters could just tell him what we find out at the end of the movie. It makes no sense whatsoever, and it makes the whole movie completely irrelevant to me.
You're spot on with that. The one thing that I will give the movie credit for is I think thematically it is kind of interesting exploring what would happen if someone didn't know something that happened in the past and they were reflecting on it with a fresh set of eyes, if that makes sense. I feel like that's a really interesting way to explore some character stuff.
There's 5 characters. Not one of them could have said, hey, let me tell you what happened. You know what I'm saying?
That is a very fair ask right there.
All right. Immaculate is a new religious-themed horror film starring Sydney Sweeney. Let's take a look at a clip.
Questo bambino è stato concepito senza peccato. Dio è testimone. Abbiamo assistito a un miracolo.
He believes you. It's a miracle.
Perry made us do this movie. Perry, tell us about Immaculate.
The color purple.
The joy it brings to my life, Neil, when you let me program a horror movie on this show. This one stars Sydney Sweeney. She plays Sister Cecilia, and she's an American nun who relocates to a convent in the Italian countryside. It's a very remote convent, and she arrives there and she's all happy and hopeful and has a big heart. And then she starts to uncover a sinister secret that this convent has, and it puts her in a life and death situation that results in a whole lot of violence and blood and extreme things that she has to power through. And I thought this was great. You know how much I love horror, and in particular, no surprise, I'm a big fan of a lot of, the classic horror movies. And in this particular case, I think like late 60s, the 70s, early 80s. And I think Immaculate really well captures that kind of pacing, atmosphere, and elegance, but it did so in a modern way where I have high hopes that this is really going to work for people who are longtime horror fans, but also maybe some of the folks out there who are a bit younger and found Sydney Sweeney through Euphoria and some of her other recent hits. So this was a really big winner for me. And I want to add one more thing. The last shot of this movie, I'm not going to spoil anything, will likely be one of my favorite shots of the entire year.
Ed?
I knew when we were doing this movie that it would be one of Perry's favorite movies. I just know her well enough. There's this Italian horror tradition called giallo, which is very bloody, very gory. This movie takes its cues from giallo. There's even a scene where the bad guy puts on black leather gloves, which is like a Dario Argento classic. But yeah, it's not for the meek of heart. It is very gory.
Did you like it?
I definitely liked it. I don't think I loved it. I think I'll never have kids. I don't think anyway. But I mean, I don't know if anyone who sees this will want to have kids after seeing this movie.
I think the script takes a long time to get going. The movie actually takes a long time to get going. It isn't until like the last third of the movie where I really got involved in it and it kind of embraced its B-movie horror genre kind of thing. And by the end, I was kind of there. But it took a long way to get there. That said, I want to ask you a question, Perry. We know each other a very long time.
Where is this going?
And you always recommend horror films. And I just want to know, what is it about... I mean, you're so opposite, knowing you, of this. You like bloody horror films. What is it about horror films that you like so much? Because you're always recommending these bloody horror films.
I actually say something similar about a lot of the horror filmmakers that I meet, is most of them are like gigantic teddy bears, some of like the warmest hearts and souls I've ever met in my life, and then they put this like absolute like bloody, gory mayhem on screen. Like, personally, I find that I can enjoy all of that so much from the safety of my own home. For the most part, I'm talking about extreme horror here, but like, I love it. I love the thrill of it. I love the safe thrill of experiencing something like this. And in particular, a lot of modern horror is really like getting at some like interesting thematic ideas that I feel like genre can explore that maybe a more traditional dramatic narrative can't touch on in the same way.
Ed, let's talk about a movie called Lousy Carter.
Yeah, Lousy Carter. Where do I even begin? This stars David Krumholtz as a literary professor. It's a movie by Bob Byington, who makes a lot of weird and strange movies. Oddly, David Krumholtz just came off Oppenheimer, so he was in the Best Picture winner from last year, and he does this movie, which is this strange... It's like an indie, but it's basically about this guy who finds out he's dying, and he has a few months to live, so he decides to have an affair with one of his students. And he doesn't have it, thankfully, because it would have been very creepy, even more creepy. But it's a movie that kind of... I mean, David Krumholtz is not very good in it. When you call a movie and a character Lousy Carter, you're just asking for it. You're just like, why do you call a movie that when everyone who sees it will be like, yeah, that was lousy.
It is lousy.
I disagree. I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry, I have to stick up for this guy. What's his name?
Bob Byington.
Bob Byington. And David Krumholtz is terrific. I really liked the whole cast. And I loved the sort of like the loose indie feel of it. Some of the dialogue was very funny. There's a funeral that's held in a bowling alley. And while they're giving the eulogies, you can hear just quietly in the background the pins going. I really dug it, and I think that it's not a great movie, and it's not a big crowd pleaser, but I hope it's somewhere on streaming that people can appreciate it.
I like David Krumholtz. I saw him on Broadway in Leopoldstadt, but he is defeated by the material here. Okay, the guy's given 6 months to live, and he doesn't even care. It's like he was told that he has some minor dental work to be done. You know, as far as
his life is very sad, and he doesn't really care whether he's going to die. I loved his whole nonchalant approach to everything that was going on around him.
The problem with this for me is that I didn't care about the protagonist. He's a very unlikable character. He's kind of pervy with a young student that he has. He's cheating on with his best friend's wife. The best friend's wife is also like creepy
But the
too.
best friend's wife's husband doesn't care.
But he's kind of there's no likable people in this particular movie.
Oh,
the whole thing
I
didn't
liked it.
gel. A Lousy Carter, perfect title, Lousy.
Yeah. But when you have a character who you don't like, you're kind of wanting him to die. And that's the thing. That's the only good thing. That might be the only good thing about the movie, that maybe he'll die at the end.
Roger,
Yes.
tell me about Knox Goes Away.
So Knox, now, as opposed to the Lousy Carter, Knox Goes Away, to me, is just a terrific modern film noir. And Michael Keaton stars in it and directed it. He's done a great job. And, you know, some of the plot doesn't work, and it's a little shaky, but it doesn't really matter because everyone's very well invested in it. And so Michael Keaton plays a hitman who has dementia, which seems to be the theme today. And
Yeah.
James Marsden plays his son. Marcia Gay Harden is his ex-wife.
Al Pacino's
Al
in this thing.
Pacino is in it as sort of his boss. And can you imagine a hitman with dementia is slowly losing his memory, can't remember who he killed, why he killed, what's going on. Except as it turns out, as we find out, that he knew exactly what was going on. And that's the interesting part. There are a lot of twists and turns. It's a very well-made, nobody tries film noir anymore. And even the film noirs of the 50s often didn't make sense or hold together, but it was atmosphere. And the atmosphere here is terrific.
Perry?
This one worked for me quite well. I was utterly captivated by the scenario, by Keaton's performance. And another thing about his direction on this that I really appreciated was I feel like he found the pitch perfect visual style, and then also credit to his editing team in order to enhance the feeling that that character might be going through with that condition, because like it stressed me out in a very appropriate manner.
I mean, compared to Sleeping Dogs, I mean, this handles dementia a lot better, a lot more realistic way. But I had problems with this movie. I don't think I liked it as much as either of you. I mean, I liked it more than Sleeping Dogs. But I think one of the problems I have is that like there's all these murders happening, all these things happening, and then we follow the investigators investigating murders that we already know what happened and who did what. So it's kind of like a lot of wasted time. I mean, I think Michael Keaton's a really good director. I think he had, having actors like Al Pacino show up for a good amount of time, Marcia Gay Harden, and also James Marsden as his son, who is not that great, but I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, which I liked a lot. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. I think Michael Keaton helps it.
I really like the movie. I think as a director, Keaton does a very competent job. But as an actor, he does a great job. He did assemble a great cast, but this is really Keaton's show. I'm transfixed on Keaton through the whole movie, and he really doesn't disappoint. He elevates the material, and I highly recommend the movie. And as you said, compared to the other dementia movie that we talked about, this is like 100 times better, than the similarly themed Sleeping Dogs.
I'm not the hero of this story. I'm just a stunt guy. Trying to look cool in front of the director of this movie. That's her, who I just so happen to have a major crush on.
We need to keep it super profesh.
Cool. Do you want to make out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
Making out?
Yeah.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
There's just one little wrinkle.
The star of the movie,
Tom Ryder.
is missing. We need you to find him.
Why me?
You're a stunt man. No one's gonna notice whether you're here or not. No offense.
I mean, some taken.
Tom?
Full disclosure, he has fallen in with some shady people.
Just checking in on you.
And they're not gonna like you sniffing around.
I'm just a stunt guy! This is insane, man.
That was a clip from the movie The Fall Guy. It happens to be Perry Nemiroff's personal choice as we go around the panel with our Critics' Picks of the Month. Perry.
I still can't believe how much I loved this movie. It stars Ryan Gosling as an experienced stuntman, and he suffers an accident on the job and steps away from Hollywood for a period of time. And then his ex, who's played by Emily Blunt, she's making her first big studio movie, and the movie runs the risk of getting shut down because its movie star disappears. He agrees to get back in the game and track this guy down, and by doing so, he winds up in a situation where he has to use his on-set stunt stunt-person skills against real-life bad guys. And the combination is so brilliant. I'll never forget when I first saw the trailer. I thought that idea was genius, and I loved the thought of a movie celebrating filmmaking and stunt people. But then I worried as the trailer progressed that it would get into, like, I guess a familiar narrative about criminals and him being the big savior of the day. But the weaving of that scenario with behind-the-scenes elements and a reverence for what it takes to make a movie is so well done and strong throughout the film from start to finish that this is just one big movie for movie-making lovers, and I appreciated that so much.
By the way, the director of this was, I read, was a stuntman.
David Leitch.
In real life for Brad Pitt.
Very talented guy, and you see that experience coming through here big time, and because he respects the craft of stunts so much. But on top of that, he shines a spotlight on so many unsung heroes in the filmmaking process that I don't know. I can't applaud what he did with this movie enough.
Roger, what's your pick this month?
All right, my critic's pick is Woody Allen, Coup de Chance, which means stroke of luck. It's Woody's 50th movie. And if you liked Match Point and Crimes and Misdemeanors, this is in that ballpark. It's a mystery. There's a couple of laughs, but they're not Woody Allen laughs. But it's beautifully done, shot in Paris, entirely spoken in French, and it has some of the best actors in Paris playing the parts. And basically, you have a young woman who's married a slightly older guy who's got a lot of money, but she's bored with him. And she picks up a lover her own age, and the husband figures it out and decides everyone's going to pay for it. and they do in very clever ways. And as you get toward the end, there's a couple of big surprises. In fact, one at the very end that would make you want to start watching the movie all over again.
I love this movie. And what I learned here in this movie is to never count Woody Allen out.
That's right.
In the early 90s, he made a bunch of kind of movies that weren't so good. Then he comes roaring back with Bullets Over Broadway and Mighty Aphrodite and Deconstructing Harry. Then he goes through a period where I go, okay, this guy's kind of finished, and it's it. Then he comes roaring back again with Midnight in Paris and Blue Jasmine.
Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Yeah. Then, again, there's a lull of some not so good movies. And this is phenomenal. And the fact that it's in French, it's like, it's with English subtitles.
Yeah.
It's watching a European movie, and the movie it's suspenseful, it's exciting, it's totally absorbing. The cast is great. This Lou Delange is just really engaging.
Yeah,
She's one of the stars
gorgeous.
of the movie.
Valérie Lemercier, who's won the Oscars in France, plays the mother-in-law, and she's the one who sort of is solving the mystery. But of course, we don't want to give too much away, but it's deftly directed. When you think that he's already, I think, 87 years old, and that he made this probably at 85 or 86, that he had such control over this film, it's terrific.
My message to Woody Allen, please keep making movies. At 87 years old, you're still in top form, and this will easily be on my top 10 list at the end of the year. Ed, what's your pick?
I'm sticking with the French movies, and actually was France's Oscar pick. It's called The Taste of Things. It's by a Vietnamese filmmaker named Trong Ang Hung. It stars Julie Binoche, who is sort of France's national treasure, giving it, I think, one of her best performances ever. It's the only movie I've given a 10 out of 10 in years. Basically, she plays a cook who's been working for 20 years for this haute cuisine chef, and there's this love story between them. It is the kind of movie that foodies love because when they're preparing the food, it just looks amazing. And they have this young girl, maybe 11, 12-year-old actress, who basically tastes the food, and the look she gives on her face makes you absorb the taste of the food. It's an amazing movie. It's a great love story. It was a bit of a controversy because France picked that instead of Anatomy of a Fall as their Oscar pick, and obviously Anatomy of a Fall just won an Oscar. But otherwise, I mean, I recommend it. It's been playing in theaters for months, and it'll be on VOD soon.
It's one of the great food movies, up there with Babette's Feast and like Water for Chocolate or Big Night. It's like all about preparation of food. If you're a foodie and you like it, it's right up there with those films, I think. You know.
Yeah. And then you walk out of the theater going, I wish they would have the food there sitting for you to eat after you watch it.
My pick is the new documentary, Remembering Gene Wilder. It's a look back at the life and career of this brilliant comedic actor who personally has given me lots of laughs over the years. In fact, Wilder co-stars in my favorite comedy of all time, The Producers. It's that movie that put him on the map and also earned him an Oscar nomination. Writer-director Mel Brooks talks about how he cast Wilder in that film, their process of working together, and there are many memorable collaborations over the years, including Blazing Saddles as well as Young Frankenstein, which Wilder, by the way, co-wrote. Many of Gene Wilder's co-stars and friends speak glowingly about him on camera, and even the late Gene Wilder himself provides some of the narration of his life with audio tracks lifted from his audiobook and talk show appearances. There's movie clips galore from many of his classic films, from Bonnie and Clyde to Willy Wonka to Woody Allen's Everything You Also Wanted to Know About Sex. Then there's his many film collaborations with Richard Pryor, including Silver Streak and Stir Crazy. His marriage to Gilda Radner, who died of ovarian cancer, is also touched upon. If you're a fan of Gene Wilder, check out this documentary.
He was an actor who had an ability to be funny.
Hello.
He's naive, he's innocent, he's sweet, simple, and honest. But when he got excited, he was a volcano.
Well, that's about all the time we have. I want to thank my guests, Edward Douglas, Perry Nemiroff, and Roger Friedman. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.